the Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Sunday evening, please make sure to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure you give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. It helps the channel out tremendously, and it's absolutely free. I wanted to come on here at halftime of the Eagles and Packers playoff game. I like the NFL playoffs, but I love the NFL playoffs. I like the NFL regular season, but I've mentioned on the channel here before that I don't really have an NFL team that I like. So that's why the playoffs to me are so enjoyable, because every game that I watch, I'm just a football fan. I never have a dog in the fight. I don't ever care who wins and loses. I just like seeing good football, and there's nothing better than NFL playoff football. It's the best of the best in the football world. But 3 weeks from today, the NASCAR season kind of sort of gets underway. And the reason why I say kind of sort of is because 3 weeks from today is the Clash that they always hold. It's kind of the NASCAR, I guess you could call it preseason race, because there's no points on the line. But it's a very good race. And this year they're going to Bowman Gray Stadium, which is just outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They have not been there since 1971. It's an eighth of a mile racetrack. So if you like dirt track racing and you like short track racing, you can't beat that. And then 2 weeks after that, on February the 16th, 5 weeks from today, is the Daytona 500. So I wanted to come on here and talk about all the complete list of drivers this year in the Cup Series full-time. Now, I'm not going to tell you all the part-time drivers, just full-time. I'm not even going to waste my time telling you their sponsors, because if you're a NASCAR fan, you pretty much know who sponsors each driver. Plus, some drivers have 5, 6, or 7 sponsors, but I'm going to tell you the car number of each driver, the crew chief of each driver, and what team each driver drives for. Hey there, Emmett. Glad to have you here on this Sunday night. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, a like. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. But I'm excited about this NASCAR season. Their one bye week this year is going to be Easter weekend, which they have not had off since, I think, 2021. So their one bye week this year will be in April on Easter. And the Xfinity Series will race that weekend, but not the Cup Series. Hey there, Fernando. Glad to have you here. But the number one car is Ross Chastain. His crew chief is Phil Surgeon, and he drives for Trackhouse Racing. And C1 PSY, I'm not sure how you want your name pronounced, so I'll pronounce it that way. You can subscribe very easily. Just go where it says subscribe and hit it, and it costs you nothing. Andrew, thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate that. And all of you on here live, if you know anybody that likes NASCAR or any form of racing, tell them to subscribe to the channel, because once the NASCAR season starts, I try to talk NASCAR at least once a week. They usually race on Sundays. Every once in a while it's on Saturday, but usually it's on Sunday. And then sometime that following week, I'll run down a list of the top 5 or top 10 from that race and talk about the race. And then sometimes if there's NASCAR news throughout the week, I'll hit on that too. It's not a NASCAR channel, but I do talk NASCAR at least once a week throughout the season. I'm a huge racing fan. And if I could get more people on here to talk NASCAR, I would talk more NASCAR, but I don't want to overdo it until I get flooded with subscribers that like NASCAR. But sometimes I'll even talk the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. But Austin Cindric is in the 2 car. Again, this year's crew chief is Brian Wilson. He drives for Penske. And I really think he needs to do something this year because, they let Brad Keselowski go to put Austin Cindric in that 2 car. And so far, he's done next to nothing. I mean, he's won a couple of races, but honestly, really, truly, the races he won were kind of fluky. He really hasn't gone out there and dominated yet, and I think he needs to show some progress this year. The 3 car is Austin Dillon, and his crew chief is Richard Boswell. And of course, he drives for his granddaddy, Richard Childress. The 4 car is back in the Cup Series this year. Now it's Front Row Motorsports because they bought one of the charters that was sold by Stewart Haas Racing after Tony Stewart decided to get out of NASCAR. Noah Gragson is the driver, and that car, and his crew chief is the guy with the longest last name in NASCAR, Drew Blickensderfer. And I really think Noah Gragson is going to be really, really good. And Andrew, if I could do a backflip, I'd do one. But I'm afraid I would break my neck, and $100 really ain't much good when you break your neck. But I think Noah Gragson's going to have a great season, going to be a good driver. And that car has a sharp, sharp paint scheme. 5 car, of course, is Kyle Larson, who drives for Rick Hendrick. His crew chief is still Cliff Daniels. The 6 car, Brad Keselowski, who drives for Roush Fenway Keselowski. His crew chief is Jeremy Bullins. The 7 car used to be Corey LaJoy. Now it's Justin Haley, whose crew chief is the old crew chief that Kevin Harvick had, Rodney Childers, and that is Spire Motorsports. The 8 car again is Kyle Busch, who drives for Richard Childress. His crew chief is Randall Burdett. And Kyle Busch signed a 3-year contract, and this is year 3 of that 3-year contract. Unless they have a really good season, I expect him to leave Richard Childress. Now, I don't know where he'll go because he left Gibbs Racing. I don't know that he goes back there, but there's no reason to leave Childress if you're going to drive for an even worse race team. But so far, it's been a struggle for Kyle Busch in that 8 car. Chase Elliott still in the 9 car. His crew chief is Alan Gustafson, and of course, that's a Hendrick car. Number 10, back in the Cup Series, a guy that seems like every year he's trucks, cup, trucks, cup, trucks, cup. The brother of Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon. His crew chief is Andrew Dickinson, and they're driving for Colleague Racing. It was a 31 car. Last year, they switched the number to number 10. It was Daniel Hemrick in that car. Daniel Hemrick is back in the Truck Series, and Ty Dillon now drives that car. The 11 is still Denny Hamlin. He has a new crew chief now. He's not happy about it, but he had no say-so about it. Chris Gale is the crew chief of that car. And, of course, that's Joe Gibbs Racing. A lot of people feel like this is Denny Hamlin's last year. With Martin Truex Jr. retiring, he's now the oldest full-time driver in the Cup Series. I think Denny would have retired a couple of years ago if he could win a championship. That's the one thing that keeps him coming back, is he's trying to win a championship. But he's had FedEx forever. FedEx is now not sponsoring him anymore. And, of course, he's also the part-time owner of 2311 Racing. He's got his 3rd baby on the way, so a lot of folks feel like this will be Denny's last year. If he can win the title this year, there's no doubt in my mind he'd retire. But I just don't think he's quite good enough to win a championship. The 12 car, of course, is Ryan Blaney, who drives for Penske. His crew chief is Jonathan Hassler. The 16 car, back in the Cup Series full-time, A.J. Allmendinger driving for Colleague. His crew chief is Trent Owens. He drove this car 2 years ago full time, and then last year he went back down to Xfinity full time, and this year he's back in Cup full time. 17 car driving for Roush Fenway Keselowski. Crew chief Scott Graves is Chris Buescher. The 19 car that Martin Truex Jr. was racing, but he retired from full time competition. Chase Briscoe, who I think is going to be a really good driver. His crew chief is Martin Truex Jr., old crew chief James Small. Of course, that's a Joe Gibbs Racing car. The 20 car, also for Joe Gibbs Racing, crew chief Adam Stevens is Christopher Bell. The 21 car for the Wood Brothers that used to be Harrison Burton is now Josh Berry, who of course drove for Stewart-Haas Racing, but Tony Stewart decided to get out of the sport. Miles Stanley is the crew chief of that car. The defending champion and the three-time champion, Joey Logano, in the 22 car for Roger Penske, crew chief Paul Wolfe. And when people talk about the greatest drivers of all time, Joey Logano's name never gets mentioned. And he's 34 years old and already won 3 championships. So this guy's probably going to win 5 or 6 championships by the time it's all said and done. The 23 car, again, to me, the most overrated driver in NASCAR, Darrell Wallace Jr. His crew chief now is Charles Deneke. Of course, he drives for 23XI. I don't think crew chief matters. I think Darrell Wallace Jr. just absolutely sucks. I think he's extremely overrated. Every year we hear about how this is Wallace's breakout year, and it never happens because he's not any good. He's the modern day Casey Kane. Every year we talk about Casey Kane, Casey Kane, Casey Kane, and then when the year come around, Casey Kane might win one race. That's kind of the same way with Darrell Wallace. The 24 car, William Byron for Hendrick. His crew chief is Rudy Fugle. Todd Gilliland is now in the 34 car that was previously driven by Michael McDowell. For Front Row Motorsports, his crew chief is Chris Lawson. The 35 car, moving up from the Xfinity Series, driving for 23XI Racing. They bought one of the charters from Stewart-Haas. Now they're a 3-car team. It's Riley Herbst. His crew chief is Davin Restivo. 38 car, driving for Front Row Motorsports, crew chief by Ryan Burgundy, is Zane Smith. The 41 car, back in the Cup Series, is Cole Custer. He's driving for Haas Factory. Now, it used to be Stewart-Haas, but Tony Stewart wanted out of the sport. Gene Haas didn't. So Gene Haas now has one driver. It's Cole Custer. Now, Cole Custer used to race full-time in the Cup Series for Stewart-Haas. He was not any good. He went back down to Xfinity. He won the championship in 2023. Gene Haas has caught him back up. I don't think Cole Custer is good enough for Cup. That's just my opinion. His crew chief is Aaron Kramer. The 42 car for Legacy Motorsports is John Hunter Nemechek. His crew chief is Travis Mack. The 43 car, crew chief by Ben Bayshore, driving for Legacy Motorsports, is Eric Jones. Now, I think Eric Jones thought he was going to go to Legacy Motorsports and really make a move, make a name for himself, and get a bigger ride, but he has completely struggled. He's done next to nothing in that 43 car. Until he does something, he's not going to get a better ride. The 45 car, crew chief by Billy Scott, 23XI Racing, Tyler Reddick. Still the 47 car, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. His chief is Mike Kelly, but it used to be JTG Doherty Racing. Now it's called Hayek because Jad, I think his name was just Schichter, decided to sell the team. Now it's called Hayek. Brad Doherty stays on board as a minority owner. And it's still Ricky Stenhouse Jr. The 48 car, Alex Bowman. His crew chief is Blake Harris. Of course, that's a Hendrick Motorsports car. The 51 car, I'm not sure about the crew chief. It was supposed to be Chris Lawson. He ended up going to front row with Todd Gilliland. But Cody Ware is driving that car for Rick Ware, and they have in the past had full-time drivers, and they have in the past had the car have 3-4 different drivers. But this year they're saying Cody Ware is going to drive it full-time all year. But at my last check this morning, they have not yet named a crew chief. The 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, crew chief by Tyler Allen, is the grandson of Joe Gibbs, Ty Gibbs. This will be his 3rd year in that car. They let Kyle Busch go to put Ty Gibbs in that car, and he has not won a race as of yet. The 60 car is the 3rd car now for Roush Fenway Keselowski, one of the former drivers for Stewart-Haas, Ryan Preece, and he's crew chief by Derek Finley. 71 car, the guy that used to drive for Front Row Motorsports, now driving for Spire Motorsports as they start a 3rd team. Travis Peterson will crew chief for Michael McDowell. The 77 car, one of his teammates, Carson Hocevar with Spire Motorsports. His crew chief will be Luke Lambert. And the last 2 cars, the 88 car, which is back in the Cup Series this year, will be driven by New Zealander Shane Van Gisbergen for Trackhouse Motorsports. His crew chief will be Steven Duran. And the 99 car, of course, again, is Daniel Suarez for Trackhouse Motorsports. His crew chief is Matt Swiderski. So 3 weeks from today is the Clash. 5 weeks from today is the Daytona 500. I am, as always, excited about the NASCAR season. I absolutely love NASCAR. I started watching it in 96. I thought I would fall out of love with it, but the older I get, the more I seem to love it. If you know anybody that likes NASCAR, please tell them jump on board and subscribe to the channel, because I need all the NASCAR love I can get here on the channel. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. The boxer was unable to get a drink. He was beat to the punch. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you